After the death of Senator Benoit Jumogu, who died recently, and the consequent by-election to fill that seat, there are several elections, of course, that happened around that time. The Imo North Senatorial seat has remained vacant in the National Assembly. It was first a case of APC internal crisis over who is the authentic candidate. Two candidates were campaigning until the day of election, but it appears the case between Senator Hararume and Mr. Frank Ebezim was settled by the court. Mr. Ebezim at some point was recognized as APC candidate, and the APC won. But there is one more trouble. This the certificate on qualification of Mr. Ebezim is called to question. And so because of that, the senatorial seat remains vacant. The PDP, who came second in the election, is asking that it should be given the seat. And tonight, we shall be hearing from the two sides of the divide in these controversies for the way forward. I'm being joined in our from Abuja studio by a former secretary to the government of Imo State, Mr. Uche Onyegocha, who will be speaking on behalf of the PDP, and Mr. Ima Okewulonu, and Mr. Beatrice Agigar, who will be speaking for Mr. Frank Ebezim of the APC. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming tonight. Let me begin the conversation with you, Mr. Onyegocha. You're a lawyer. You've been in government. You know how this thing works. Give us a sense, why do you think that the PDP owns the right to that seat? You did not win that election. The APC was declared winner.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity, Sheung. The truth is that the law requires that there has to be a candidate in an election. And whenever there is an election, there has to be a Form EC8E deployed. And that is the form where the winner will be clearly stated, and the certificate, the evidence that he has won, will be delivered to the winner. That Form EC8E was not filled by INEC. Rather, INEC went ahead to announce that APC won the election. The law does not require that a party be announced as a winner of an election. The law requires that a candidate of a party must be announced as the winner of the election. Now, in the absence of any candidate for any party that is declared, that is seen to be winning, the second runner-up in the election will be declared as the winner of the election. The second runner-up, for the purpose of Okigwe's Imo North Senatorial election, which is Okigwe zone, is Chief Emmanuel Okewulonu. And he needs to be declared as the winner because APC clearly did not have any candidate for the purpose of that election. And it is very evident with the fact that till this moment I'm talking to you, the APC is still fighting in different courts across the country as to who was the candidate for the purpose of the election which took place in December 5th. We're not going to have to wait for APC forever to decide who their candidate is. There is a time limit required in law for a candidate of a party to emerge so that we know who we were fighting that election against.
Let me allow your colleague there sitting. He's a lawyer too. How do you react to what Mr. Onyegocha has just said as regarding the status of APC?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sean. There is no, at this point, any controversy as to who is the candidate of the APC for that election. Penultimate election, there was a decision of the Federal High Court in Owerri that the candidate, Mr. Frank Ebezim, should not stand the election. But that decision has since been overtaken by the decision of the Court of Appeal in Abuja, wherein the candidature of Mr. Ebezim was reaffirmed. So Mr. Ararume, who happens to be the respondent in that matter at the Court of Appeal, further appealed to the Supreme Court, which appeal was dismissed. By that analogy, Mr. Ebezim was at that time and is still the candidate of the APC for that election. The decision of the Federal High Court Owerri nullifying his nomination was set aside by the Court of Appeal, and on a further challenge at the Supreme Court, that decision was reaffirmed. The decision of the Court of Appeal was reaffirmed. So logically and legally too, the implication is that Mr. Frank Ebezim was the candidate at that election. and there is no controversy whatsoever as to who was the candidate at that election.
Because this court case is lingering, if you can show our viewers a timeline of how this has gone over the past few months, Ms. Onyegocha raised the issue of the timing to wait for these. Don't you think that the logjam has exceeded the time for this case to have been brought, to be taken out of court and to be settled?
Well, the point is this. There is a candidate who has already participated in the election. And whatever contest that is going on as to whether there is a candidate or not is going to no issue, specifically because you cannot really litigate the issue of candidature, same having gone all the way to the Supreme Court. And the status has been clearly defined. So to assume that there is a pending issue, pending controversy as to who the candidate of the party is not there. For me and for a lot of people who are familiar with this issue, I think INEC ought to do the needful, because the law creating INEC, the Electoral Act specifically, that governs INEC, says that a candidate should be issued a certificate of return. And since that at the end of the election, and even to this moment, a candidate has clearly been determined, and the winner of the election, there's no contest, there's no issue as to whether APC participated or has won the election or not. Now, having established that there is a candidate who has won the election, I think INEC should do the needful and even issue certificate of return.
All right.
That would have solved the whole controversy.
All right. Let's take a breather. And when we come back, we look at some of the implications. But of course, the case that will be brought against Mr. Frank Ibezim, when you are asking that there should be a certificate of return given to him, we allow Mr. Onyegocha to react to that. And what is being the non-representation of the people of Imo North Senatorial District in the National Assembly, the implication of all of that, we'll look into it when we come back from this break, everyone. Join us again. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. Mr. Uche Onyegocha, former SSG of the state government in Imo State, a lawyer who is speaking tonight on behalf of the PDP candidate, and Mr. Okewulani in the Imo North Senatorial District election, which there is a logjam now, and Mr. Bitrus Agigara, who is a representative of the APC, a lawyer also, and that of Mr. Frank Ibezim. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming tonight. Let me allow you to react to what Mr. Agigara has said there, Mr. Onyegocha. Is there any position of the law, any precedent in law as to this kind of situation where the runner-up becomes the beneficiary of this kind of controversy or this kind of situation? In any case, he said that the case is yet to be determined by the Supreme Court.
And the law is very clear on this subject matter. Where there is no candidate for a political party, the runner-up in the election is declared the winner. Now, there is no controversy, and I need to make it very clear. First, we have a publication by INEC at some point before the December 5th election stating clearly that Frank Ibezim was a candidate of APC. After some time, the same INEC made another publication stating that Ifeanyi Ararume was the candidate of APC. A day to that election, when both of them canceled themselves out through the different litigation, INEC made yet a third publication showing that there was no candidate for APC. And in order to prove that there was no controversy to that effect, on the date of election, after the results had been collected, INEC clearly stated that APC was the winner, even when INEC knew that you can't declare APC. The fact that INEC admitted that APC was the winner shows that INEC, which is the sole umpire, recognizes that there was no candidate for the APC as at December 5 when that election held. So the only right thing to do was to declare Chief Emmanuel Okewulonu of the PDP, who is the runner-up in that election, as the winner of the election, because PDP had a candidate and APC didn't have a candidate. But the truth one needs to point out is that the two of them even campaigned. The two of them even mobilized for votes. And we must point out that it was the aggregate of the votes that the two of them earned, both Ifeanyi Ararume and Frankie Bezim, that came to 36,000. While it was the sole campaign effort of Emmanuel Okewulonu that gave him 31,000 votes. So at the end of the day, since they didn't have any candidate, there is only one appropriate thing to do, and INEC knows it. If there was a candidate of APC, INEC would not have thought twice in declaring that person the winner of the election. Why did INEC not fill in the form EC8E as is required by law? Because it is a form that is conclusive. I have contested election, and I know that at the final collation, the candidate who won the election, his name will be clearly stated on the form EC8E, and he will be declared the winner of the election. So we are saying that we should follow the law. Declare Emmanuel Okewulonu, the runner-up in that election, as the winner of the election, because that is the truth, and that is the fact, and that is the law. There is nothing anybody can do about it.
Let Mr. Yegocha, before I allow Mr. Agikara to respond to what you've said, have you approached INEC on this your stand? Because INEC is the ultimate determinant in this matter. When INEC says it gives a certificate of return, the person becomes the senator. Have you approached INEC?
We have approached INEC repeatedly, and we have requested them that they should do the rightful thing in law by declaring the PDP candidate, Chief Emmanuel Okewulonu, as the winner of the election, being the second runner, being the runner-up in the absence of a candidate for PDP, of candidate of the APC. But they have not done so because, of course, we know that they are reacting to the weight of the fact of APC being the government at the center. But that senatorial seat has been vacant for more than 1 year. And the APC are busy fighting over who is the candidate. As at this moment, Frank Ibezim, whom the Supreme Court says is the candidate based on the appeal by Ifeanyi Ararume, has already been disqualified by the Court of Appeal in 2 separate judgments, as not being qualified to have contested that election. So for how long are we going to wait for APC to continue to fight over who should be their candidate for an election that held on December 5?
All right.
They are not going to have to fight
Mr.
forever.
Ibezim,
because there is one more thing I should add. The last thing I want to add is that even as I'm talking to you, there are new litigation to the effect that Frank Ibezim, having been disqualified, that the third runner-up of the APC should be allowed to be declared as the candidate of APC for the purpose of that election, and which is a case they hope to drag through another long run up to the Supreme Court. We're not going to allow APC to continue this forum shopping as to who
Mr. Yegocha, let me allow Mr. Agiyara to respond to that. Mr. Agiyara, I mean, it does look like a major problem for your client, Mr. Ibezim.
Well, I wouldn't say so. Even going by what the guest here had said, the issue as to whether Mr. Ibezim is qualified to contest for the election in the first place is a matter that is pending before the Supreme Court. And I will choose not to make any comment on that, same being sub judice. But the issue, at the crux of that whole issue is that he has been nominated validly, and that nomination stands. That decision is the decision of the Supreme Court. There is no room for appeal on that. So as long as the law is concerned, and I will canvass the same argument here, that having been certified, if the Supreme Court decides that you are the candidate, I don't think INEC would put it to election as to whether to accept your candidature or not. The Supreme Court has already made a point that he is the candidate of the party, and the party contested the election. Mind you, victory belongs to the political party. The party contested the election with a candidate who has won. If you were asking INEC not to issue a certificate of return to Mr. Ibezim on the premise that there is a litigation, there is an adjudication as to his qualification, entitlement to run at the election in the first place, then it is going to take us, it's going to be a big circus in the sense that for every candidate that contests an election, there is certainly going to be an election petition tribunal constituted to determine that. By that token, by that argument, we are saying that no candidate should be declared until the election petition tribunal has exhausted its mandate and all the appellate processes. INEC should recognize
Mr. Agigiara, so let's get you clearly, just for a moment, Mr. Agigiara, what you are, in essence, if you can make it clear, what are you asking INEC to do? Because Mr. Onyegocha has said INEC should declare the runner-up, their candidate in the PDP, as the senator of Imo North. But are you saying that pending the Supreme Court case, your candidate, or Mr. Ibezim, should be given the ticket, and if he loses at the Supreme Court, correct, what then happens?
That exactly is the position. We cannot use this hypothetical scenario of if he loses or if he doesn't, because the same argument will apply for. If I'm permitted to give an example, we are all aware of the Taraba case. There was a decision at the tribunal that the PDP had lost the election, and then going forward to the Court of Appeal, another decision comes, and then the Supreme Court affirms. Are we saying that as soon as there is a challenge, as soon as there is litigation, and nobody should take the seat? We are both in consensus that there is a vacancy, and the people of this constituency deserve to be represented. It is not the contemplation of the law that nobody should occupy a seat of power until and unless the appellate process is exhausted from the tribunal all the way to the Supreme Court. We're talking about another year. The law does not envisage that. This scenario, these circumstances can completely be abated if we decide, and if INEC should do the needful and say, well, pending that decision, and it's the right thing to do, and it is the law, pending the decision of the Supreme Court, let this man occupy the office. That exactly has been the position of the law.
So we're out of time now, gentlemen. We're out of time, gentlemen. And I'll allow 30 seconds each for both parties to give their final thought. Mr. Onyegocha, just in the 20 seconds or 30 seconds, please, what's your final thought on this matter?
The appropriate thing is that on December 5, when that election held and APC didn't have a candidate, INEC should have gone ahead to declare Chief Emmanuel Okewulon as the winner of the election, being the second runner-up. APC now has the whole time to go through the gamut of the law up to Supreme Court. Whenever they finally conclude as to who their candidate is, they could then go ahead and sue Chief Emmanuel Okewulon to say that he didn't win the election. That's the appropriate
All right. So let's allow Mr. Agigiara. Your 30 seconds starts now on your final thought.
Yes. Yes. While responding specifically to what he has said, we need not to go to the Supreme Court anymore. We have been there. We have done it. We have a judgment. And to align my argument with his, let the INEC issue the certificate to him, because Mr. Ibezim is clearly the winner of the election and the APC has a candidate. Thank you.
Mr. Bitru Ajikiara representing Mr. Ibezim and the APC tonight on the program, and Mr. Uche Onyegocha, former SSG to the Imo State government and lawyer, also representing PDP, and Mr. Okewulon on the program. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming tonight to speak on this matter. Well, that's our show for today, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I'm sure Kimale. Bye-bye.